In today's episode, I will be speaking with John Burnett. John has 11 years of experience in education and mental health. Currently, he is a middle school counselor. He has also been an elementary school counselor, a middle school counselor, a Spanish teacher, and an assistant principal. John received his bachelor's in Spanish from the University of Memphis, a master's in social counseling from Cambridge College, and an education of science in school administration from Freed Hardeman. John enjoys building bridges and making connections with students, families, and teachers. He also hopes to continue to make a positive impact in the community and the world. John specializes in coping skills, mindfulness, grounding, and helping students work through trauma, anxiety, and stress. I am extra excited about today's episode. So, join me as I speak to John on how you can support your language learners with their social and emotional health. Okay. Hey, everyone. We are jumping in and we have John Burnett on with us
Hey y'all.
today. And he is going to be sharing with us strategies, tips about how we can support our language learners in their social and emotional health. I'm going to let John just jump in and tell us a few things about himself, his population at his school, and just give us some of his background. So go ahead and share that with us, John. Anything you'd like to share?
Sure. Hey y'all. My name is John Burnett, and I am a Memphis native, born and raised. I transitioned to Houston about 3 years ago. I started in education as a middle school Spanish teacher in the Hickory Hill neighborhood. So I'm very familiar with Millicent and Millie got going on. I was an elementary school counselor, middle school counselor, and I was an assistant principal. So I've done quite a few things in education, and it's been amazing to get all that experience and being able to support all these students and families.
Yeah, that is really cool. You said that you've been in administration, a counselor,
Mm-hmm.
and a teacher. So you kind of have that a full picture background of everything that's going on. What made you decide to become a counselor? Because I noticed that you said you was a teacher, then
Yeah.
admin, and then a counselor. Usually people kind of go the other way, like, oh, a teacher, and then move up to admin. But it seems
Yeah.
like you kind of made a full circle back to becoming a counselor. What motivated you to do that?
So actually, when I was a teacher, when I was teaching middle school, the students would come in and I was helping them with a lot of their problems that they were facing in their homes, in communities, and even their social interactions. And so I was like, I'm spending a lot of my classroom time helping students with these
Yeah.
emotional needs. I'm like, I might as well actually go to school and get the degree for this. And so that's what I decided to go to school and get my master's in school counseling. And there we go. I'm like, I'm already doing the work and I enjoy it. And then I learned a lot in my practicum experience too. That just really was like, this is the foundation. This is why I want to go into school counseling.
Yeah. John, do you mind just sharing, like, what are some trends that you're seeing in school when it comes to social and emotional health with your students?
Oh,
I know it wasn't one of the questions I sent over, but you brought that
no,
up and I
but
thought about that. Like, what are some trends
that,
that you're seeing with the
that's
students?
real though. Right now,
Yeah.
like over the last 2 years, education has changed
Yes.
dramatically.
Yeah.
Not just the academic part of it, but like the social emotional needs. They were already high before the pandemic, but now it's crazy. Like some of
Yeah.
our students are having to deal with is just unreal. Like I'm seeing a rise in anxiety,
Okay.
depression, instances of, again, trigger warning, but instances of self-harm. There's so much going on that our students are dealing with. And I really empathize with them because it's hard for them to focus on academics. And, the teachers are doing the best that they can, but it's really hard because, these students, they're really struggling with things that are beyond their control.
Yeah, yeah, I'm noticing that too. And I notice a lot of teachers are saying that they feel like their students are behind
Yeah.
maturity wise, like 2 grade levels. And I know I can kind of speak to that too, because
Yeah.
this year I was teaching 6th grade and I kept saying, I feel like I'm teaching an elementary class sometimes,
But we also have to remember that the
Yeah,
last normal school year for some of these kids could have been elementary. And so
right.
they've been at home for 2 years or sometimes a little over a year. And that has stunted their social emotional growth. Because we have to think about, like, even as adults, we've gotten comfortable being on Zoom as opposed to being in a room with other people, right? So
Yeah.
they're still learning those social emotional needs. And so it's been a struggle.
Yeah, you are so right. I have to remind myself that all the time. My other teachers are like, I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. So why do
Yeah.
you think it's so important to support the social and emotional health of the students? Why do you feel that it's just something that we need to be doing every single day in the classroom, in the halls, just every moment of the day? I feel like we do need to be doing it. Why do you feel like it is so important for us as educators to be supporting them?
Well, it's important because it's affecting their academics. It's
Mm-hmm.
because it's affecting their whole well-being. If we don't meet those basic needs for our students, then it's hard for them to concentrate on completing schoolwork. And honestly, I don't know about like a lot of different places, but I've seen a shift in like the way that the students are even, feeling about their future or feeling about their grades or things like that. And it's hard for them to focus on those things when they've got so many other things they're dealing with, as far as like grief or loss or again, loneliness, depression, anxiety, all those things. It's hard for them to focus. So if we don't focus on like making sure those students are taken care of emotionally, it's hard for them to do any type of work.
So how is we as educators can incorporate just quick, simple things into our daily lessons or classroom interactions to help support those students in our classroom?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One thing that I do as a counselor, I make sure that all of my teachers on my team have this running PowerPoint or presentation with little quick activities. So I understand what it's like being a teacher, because I was a teacher once too. I wasn't held to any of the state assessments, but I understand the pressure along with that. So anything that I send to my teachers, I tell them these are things that can be done in less than 5 minutes. Some of them a minute or 2 minutes. But I will send them like deep breathing exercises, exercises for grounding, making sure that they, are aware of their senses, things like that. Some things that they can implement so easily.
Yeah.
It doesn't take anything that they have to prepare for. They don't have to do anything. I give them everything that they need. And so I always say, hey, this is what you have available. Try these with the students, but you have to first get get them invested in it and make sure they understand the importance of it. So it's a lot in the beginning, but it pays off in the end. So I always tell teachers, you may miss 2 or 3 minutes of your instruction, but it's going to drastically impact the way that things go in the classroom.
Yeah, I'm just thinking from a teacher's perspective, because you're going to have teachers out there that say, well, I don't have 2 minutes, or how does this connect to the standards? Or
True.
yeah,
Exactly.
you're gonna have that pushback, and when you get that pushback, John, like, well, how does this connect to the standards, or how does this connect to what I'm doing as a counselor, or even from an admin perspective, since you definitely have that admin perspective too? What would you tell them? I know I have an idea of some things that I could say, but from your perspective, what are some things that you would say?
So beforehand, before I send them anything, even through email or whatever, I always have a conversation with them face to face and let them know these are the benefits. These are the ways that this is going to impact your classroom in a positive way. This is the research behind it. And, not just the students, but this is for you too. I want to teach you as the adult in the classroom how to take deep breathing, do deep breathing exercise, or do mindfulness meditation, do quick things to take care of yourself. So once you show them the benefits of it and you form a partnership with them, they're more likely to be on board.
Yeah. So
giving somebody something. And right now, even through email, just sending them emails and not like talking to them beforehand. Because a lot of times, adults don't read those emails because they're like over stressed right at the moment. So about the way that it's delivered, and it's all about the way that it's framed beforehand.
I love that. I love that. Like how you said, it's about how it's framed, how it's delivered. And I heard you saying building relationships with the educators beforehand. And I think as teachers, it goes the other way as well, making sure you're going out and you're building relationships with the counselor, you're building relationships with your admin team and other teachers on your team as well. And I also want to say, just as a thought, in language classrooms, you can easily incorporate a quick speaking activity afterwards. So, you can say, hey, I want to do a quick check-in. I want you to turn to a partner and share, how do you feel after doing this breathing activity? How does this make you feel? What adjectives come up? Things like that. If you feel like you have to connect it to something, there's still ways that you can do it and be creative with it as well.
And those are just some examples of some of the things that I provide. Sometimes I'll provide just a simple quote or a picture with with a meaning, but that's because I also think about the different content areas and so how they can provide it. So one thing that I've done specifically for ELA is through our character traits that we have every month, I always give them like a journal quote or something that that the students can do to write like a couple messages or things on, when they read it, because that also enhances their ELA and their writing skills. So I try to think beforehand, what are some of the teachers that, what are some of the pushback or feedback that they're going to have and try to have that ready beforehand.
Yeah, I like that too. I like that idea of like, some of those, just some ideas, that things that you can do. And from the parents' perspective, I know a lot of parents, I know in middle school, you teach middle school, is that correct? Or you're in high school, middle school, okay.
Middle.
So I know in elementary, parents are very hands-on, but as they're getting older, parents are like, I don't want to, So what can parents be doing at home? Just simple things that they can do at home to support their students, because as educators, a lot of times we want to know, well, what can we tell the parents to do at home to kind of help their children out with some social and emotional help?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So one thing that we haven't had a chance to do because of the pandemic, honestly, is like have more parent involvement come to our school. And one thing that I've done in the past, and I would like to do it moving forward, is have an information session for parents on like, these are some of the strategies that we're teaching your students at school. How can you incorporate that at home? Mm-hmm. And thing that I do when I meet with my students individually or do small groups with them, we do coping skills, I always give them resources that they can take home. And I always say, teach this to your family so that they can learn these things too. And before I release them, I always say, all right, now I'm going to stop talking. I want you to teach me what I taught you so that you are able to go home and teach your family, because I just want to make sure you're prepared.
Yeah, I love that idea as well. In a way, it's also a good way for them to assess too. So
yes, it is.
Like, teacher thinking. What did you learn? What do you as a counselor need from teachers? And what I mean by that, what are some things that for this to be successful in the classroom, you do need a partnership with teachers. So what is something from your perspective that you need from teachers just to make sure that these strategies are successful in the classroom?
Biggest things, and thankfully I'm at a campus where the teachers that I work with, they're amazing and they are implementing these strategies, and I see them using it, I see the students using it, which is great. But the big thing is just collaboration and being able to step outside of your comfort zone sometimes. Like, that's the big thing. Sometimes as educators, we've gotten ourselves into a routine where we do the same things every single school year. And so when you have something new that's introduced, even though it may be beneficial, it can be a little uncomfortable. And so just stepping outside of your comfort zone and being able to collaborate and even like speaking up when you don't agree with something, as long as it's done in a professional manner. Like, I always like give my stuff to my teachers beforehand and say, hey, look over it, tell me what you like, what you don't like, and then I can like make some adjustments.
Yeah, I like that idea, and being vulnerable too. I think that's so hard. We want our students to be vulnerable, but are we doing the same thing like you said, when it comes to trying new strategies and ideas in the classroom? From a student's perspective, I know you mentioned earlier that you're seeing a rise in anxiety and depression and those things. When a teacher sees that in her students or his students, what are some things that they should be doing? I know we have of course, it's a protocol at different schools. Some, like I know, for example, in mine, we're almost immediately supposed to get the counselor involved. So would you just tell them to refer to the protocol, or is there just some simple things that they can do to kind of help out when they notice those things in their students?
So that's a really good question. One of the big things, of course, I always make sure that they are able to contact me. They have my personal cell phone number. I always tell them to text me. It's easier sometimes than trying to call me on my office phone, because sometimes I'm in here. Yeah. That's one of the main purposes for sending them this presentation, so that they have like a bank of skills that they can use beforehand. And I want them to be comfortable enough to be able to say, hey, I know that you're struggling right now. Why don't you go try this deep breathing exercise that we learned on Monday? Come back to me and see if that works. And if it doesn't, then I'll send you to Mr. Burnett or one of the other counselors. Okay. So I want just to feel empowered to know that there's something they can do proactively. And if they can't handle that situation, please refer to one of us. There's a lot of free things that teachers can do. And I would definitely send them to you. I'll email them to you and you feel free to send them out. But a lot of things that I get and the way I create my videos or things like that, it's free resources that are already available.
Okay.
So specifically, and I advertise this a lot, is copingskillsforkids.com. You can download a lot of free deep breathing exercises. And like I said, I'll send all these to you. These are free.
Okay. I know people are going to ask, like, where do I get these resources from? So you all, definitely. I will be sure, if you're listening, I will link John's YouTube channel, and I will be sure in the show notes, you all, to link the resources that he mentioned as well, so you can have access to those resources to do with your students as well.
I would highly recommend they print these out, have several copies available in their room, and just they're very easy, very simple to follow. The instructions are so clear cut to where it's like they're very helpful for our students, and again for adults too.
I know, because I even sometimes before work I start doing this. Is just taking deep breaths before getting out the car, meditating for 5 minutes just to make sure, say a prayer sometimes before I even get out the car. And I've noticed the days where I do that, I do feel a lot more centered and a lot calmer. I know this leads into the next question that I have for you, and it's about being consistent. And what do you think is the benefit of having a consistent social and emotional support in the classroom? Like, what is the benefit that you see of that? I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but if you can dive a little bit deeper into that,
of course.
What is some of the benefits of that?
So even the most, I don't want to say difficult, but even the student who's having the most difficult behavior concerns, they crave consistency.
Yeah.
Think about some of their home life environments, and we may not know everything, but there's things that we see bits and pieces of. But some of our students come to school and they don't have any structure, they don't have any consistency, they don't have anything. And so the more that we can provide stability for them, the more comfortable they will become, and then the more able they are to complete those assignments or be participating in class or all those things. But it's going to require that consistency in making sure that students are taken care of, even just like their basic needs, like food, water, clothing. Once we can make sure that we take care of our kids that way, you'll see the rise in academics, you'll see the rise in motivation, and it's just so many things that we can do to provide support for them.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking about, you said the motivation part. And a lot of times teachers say, well, my students aren't motivated.
Yeah.
And how do you believe, does that connect to social emotional health in any way?
Oh, definitely.
Do you believe? And if you can you just kind of touch on that for us and talk to about it, like
of
how
course.
That's connected and how it can end up motivating your students in the end.
Like I said, it's really hard, especially over the last 2 years, that our students have seen a lot of things. And like grief and loss even adults handle grief and loss differently. Yeah. And it's hard for us to expect students who are still developing, mentally and, physically, emotionally, to come in and be their full selves when they've got all these things that they're worried about or concerned about. And so we just have to make sure that we're doing everything we can do to provide support. And if again, just doing what you can in the scope of your work to make sure that you're providing support to our students and meeting their social emotional needs. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you have a school with a high population of language learners. And so how do you notice that differs from when you were working in a school? I know you pretty much always worked at a lot of schools with a high population of language learners, because I know
this is the most though.
Yeah. So how is that different? I mean, like, are you doing any specialized support versus where you were before? And if you can you touch on that a little bit for us?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you a story about something that literally just happened today, actually. Okay. So we have a lot of newcomers to our school from different countries. And some of the times that I'll actually hear their stories, it's heartbreaking. Yeah. So that they had to endure to get to our country. It's hard. Yeah. I have a student today, he came in and he was having panic attacks, and he's only been here for maybe 2 weeks, I believe, but he was having panic attacks. He was just saying how it's really difficult to learn English, and that's like, it's stressful being in a class because they have double block language arts class. So he said it's really stressful to him. And he had been going to the nurse more frequently over the last couple weeks. And so the nurse called me today and she's like, he's having chest pains. And so, well, I think it could be something like social emotional. Can you talk to him? And so I pull him aside, and it really helps that I speak Spanish with our students. And that already provides some level of comfort for them. But we went over some deep breathing exercises together. Last year, I created a school counseling website where we have like different resources for anxiety, different videos that I pulled together and kind of put in one place. And so I sat him down and had him watch those 2 videos. And then I did one of those coping skills that I got from copingskills.com or copingkids.com. And we did some deep breathing exercises and I could just see that he was starting to feel a little bit better. And then the that I did is I reassured him that I was going to talk to the team that works to teach him and see what kind of other levels of support we can do for him academically. But I mean, it helps that I'm familiar with our English language learners and that the fact I can speak Spanish, but everybody may not have that on their campus, but just the fact that we have supports for those students is great.
So one of the things that you mentioned was about you told that story about the student, and it kind of brought something up to me, is that a lot of times we have these expectations. I know I do too. I'm the same way. I have to catch myself a lot of times. Is that we have these expectations for the students to be able to come in and sit down and do their bell ringer and do their assignment and be quiet and all of these expectations for the students. And we sometimes don't realize everything that it took for them to even to arrive here in the United States, what they may have gone through and the trauma behind that. And it kind of is just really eye-opening for me to say, hey, sometimes we as educators need to take a step back and think, okay, is there something else really going on here? And I think that's why it's also really important, going back to what you said, just taking 2 minutes at the beginning of class to take some deep breathing exercises, or incorporating a brain break in there for your students as well. So thank you for sharing that story and kind of grounding a lot of us as well. I know for me, before we wrap up, I just want to know, are there any just simple, straightforward strategies, tips that you want to provide anyone that's listening to make sure that they're doing their best in providing just the social and emotional health for their students?
Yes, there are so many really simple things that you all can do. And like I said, I'm going to share these resources so that you have them available. But of course, there's deep breathing exercises. There's different ways to practice mindfulness. But the simple things like gratitude, there's gratitude exercises, just starting your morning with what is one thing that you're grateful for. And you see, that takes just a couple minutes for have students reflect. And they don't even have to say it out loud if they don't want to, or write it. It's just take a moment. Let's think about what we're grateful for. I also share a lot of positive affirmations with my students and teachers. And I always encourage the teachers, why don't you take one from the list? It's like 100 of them. You write one on the board and set your intentions for the week too. So you model this and it'll help you and it'll help your students. So there's so many like quick things that teachers can do to provide support that, again, I mean, it doesn't take any prep to do that. You just pick a positive affirmation and have students pick one that resonates with them.
Yeah, when you said set your intentions, I want to follow up on that. What do you mean by that? Can you give me an example of setting your attention with yourself and with the students for the week? Because that's a good, I got a wellness journal and it had that in there, set your intentions. And I'm like, what do you mean set my attention? What does that even mean?
To me, that's a better way or a different way to say resolutions or a goal for that day.
Okay.
Like, for example, like I always say, like, pick something from this positive affirmation list that resonates with you so that you can get through the day. So one thing about us as adults, even like it can be counselor, teacher, administrator, whatever, we can encourage students all day long. We can say, we want you to have a growth mindset. We want you to be resilient. We want you to be able to bounce back. But there are times when we don't give ourselves that same grace and we don't for ourselves. So we have to actually set intentions for ourselves to make sure that we do those things too. So like I said, taking care of yourself, finding a gratitude statement, things that you're grateful for, doing some positive affirmations, not just doing it for the kids because it's something that's going to help them. We have to know that that's going to help us as adults too.
Yeah, I am really excited about this because I can even imagine you all that are listening how this can be a fun morning Bellwork activity if you have
Oh
a
yeah.
homeroom where the teacher just models for the student. This is my, be very kind of personal and
Yeah.
transparent. This is my intention for the week. And I'm going to model for you all how this looks and how this
Mhm.
sounds if I'm doing this. What is your intention for the week? And then
Yep.
have the students write their intention for the week.
Yep.
And it seems like it's maybe something personal. I mean, I don't know if it'll be something that you want them to share out, but that is also another great way you all just brainstorming here of how that can be a writing activity for your students, how that can be a
Hmm.
listening activity for your students, how that
Hmm.
can be a speaking activity for your students as well. Because I'm just imagining that if they can have something like Flipgrid where they can go
Yeah, I
actually
love
on
Freed.
Flipgrid and speak their intention for the week because it is
Hmm.
something powerful. Or like John said, if you have affirmations, open up a Flipgrid, have them go to Flipgrid, you all, and
Yeah.
say the affirmation in Flipgrid. And I'm just saying this, John, because I know people are going to say, how do I include this in my
Yeah. Or
how can I incorporate the four languages?
if they're
Yeah.
comfortable with learning different types of technology, I absolutely love Padlet.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love Padlet too.
And so
Yes.
you can do that with Padlet. Okay, so this morning we're gonna everybody's going to go on Padlet and share a GIF of their something that they're like or something they're working towards or what there's so many different ways that you can incorporate this where it's not just writing or not just speaking, which all are important, but
Yeah.
engaging activities and ways to connect all this.
Yeah, and also like the visual support, like how you said the
Mm-hmm.
GIF or meme to show that.
Mm-hmm.
Just having those visuals, of course, we all know that's big with language
Mm-hmm.
learners
Yep.
as well. I want to thank you, John, for coming on and
Yes.
sharing these strategies with us. Is there anything that you would like to share with the audience that before we log off for today? Just want to make sure get everything
Yes.
in.
Well, I just want to thank you all. And again, give yourself grace and know that this has just been a hard 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
You may be seeing a rise in behaviors. You may be thinking that, there's nothing that I'm doing that's working. Or you may think those things, but I can assure you that there is something you are doing. You may not see the impact of it right this second, but you are making a difference in somebody's life, whether that's a student, a colleague, a family that you're working with at school, but you're doing something. So keep going. And the things that, the resources that I'm going to send you, please don't feel overwhelmed and think you have to do all of it. Take it in chunks and do what's comfortable for you and what you feel is going to be beneficial for your students. But I can assure you that it's going to make an impact.
Thank you so much. And John, where can they find you? I know you have Instagram.
Yes.
I don't know if your Facebook group is just for counselors.
No, it's for educators. It's for mental health professionals. It's for anyone. And I share resources in that group for free too. So there's 3 ways that you can connect with me and find out more information about how I help students in my school and how I help other educators. But one on my Instagram and my YouTube, they're the same handle, same spelling and everything, but it's Counseling with Mr. B. So Instagram and YouTube. Okay. And if you'd like to join my Facebook group, it's called the Learning Lab. And again, you can be an educator, assistant principal, or a leader. It doesn't matter. I want everybody to feel free to come in and get those resources.
Okay. And you all, I will make sure to link all the ways you can join John's community, his Instagram, all of his freebies that he does post in the group, because he does post a lot of freebies in the group. And also anything that he sends over, I will also make sure to link that in the show notes. John, I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and everybody that's listening, thank you all as well. We will see you all with a new episode next week. Bye.
Bye.